the moment. Welcome to those of you who will be joining us from other parts of the world or other times of the day or other days of the week. We welcome those of you who are joining us even into the future, which is one of the weird things about the internet. But we're glad that you are all here. A quick word about Ember Days. Some of you may know this. That's a tradition, a really old tradition that comes to us through the Roman Catholic Church and through the Anglican Church. Quarterly holy days to mark the four seasons, times of prayer and fasting, times of intentional living that invite us to give thanks for the earth in particular, remember to care for creation and to care for people in need. That really resonates with the work that Ligare is about in so many ways. Ember Days, as I said, was originally crop focused. Spring is, of course, a time to think about planting and the growth of plants. And so that is part of our theme this evening. We're in this season of Pentecost. Those of you who follow the Christian liturgical calendar likely celebrated Pentecost this past Sunday, this day and this season of growth and new experiences. So tonight we're going to focus a bit on change and growth as well. Alec Davis is our musician this evening, and he will also be our speaker or one of our speakers. He will have a few moments to offer some reflections, and then at a point we'll all be invited to offer somewhat brief reflections. Alec is the organist and music director at Westmoreland Congregational United Church of Christ in Bethesda, Maryland. He lives in Baltimore, Maryland, where he teaches piano. I had the good fortune to work with him for a number of years. He is a super interesting person who enjoys being immersed in philosophy and cognitive neuroscience and economics. He practices woodworking, Zen meditation, and he at least reads Japanese and speaks Japanese as well. He and his husband Ed and their cats make a home in Baltimore. Pardon me. Lynn Coulson is also taking part in our service this evening, a friend and participant in Ligare's work. She is joining from Vermont this evening. She is a chaplain, a veteran of the military. She's a spiritual director, a mother, a grandmother, and many other things. As we were introducing ourselves earlier, Hunt Priest said that she's a really cool person. So that's the highlight of her bio tonight. She's a really cool person. Hunt Priest, the executive director of Ligare and Episcopal Priest, is our technician, our behind the scenes Zoom operator tonight. So Hunt, thanks for all that you do to unite us and tonight to keep us on track, technologically at least. I'm Tim Todd. I'm a United Church of Christ clergy person. I'm a nonprofit executive and consultant. I'm on the board of Ligare, and I live in Bethesda, Maryland. And so I'm glad to help guide tonight's experience as well. As I said, Ember Evenings is this gathering to celebrate the earth and to care for each other. It is a gift to you and to the world from Ligare. If you are familiar with Ligare, which most of you are, if you want to know more, you can go to ligare.org. And I would be remiss as a board member if I did not encourage everyone to donate to support the work of Ligare as you are able financially. You can do that at ligare.org as well. Our format for the evening is fairly straightforward. There'll be music that Alec offers in a moment. Lynn will be reading a Mary Oliver poem for us, as I said. Alec will offer some formal words of reflection and contemplation for us. And at a point, we will invite reflections from the entire group. And I would just remind you that since there are a few of us, be as brief as possible, but as meaningful as possible as well. Keep your mics muted until you actually want to say something and unmute, but we'll guide that as well so we don't get static and over talk. But we want to hear tonight a bit from everyone about what we think about change and new life and new possibilities and new revelations and growth. So again, welcome. Certainly glad you are here. Those in this moment, those who will be gathering later points as well. So I would invite you as Lynn reads this poem before she reads for us, if you just take a deep breath, center yourself as best you are able to breathe in, breathe out, and to be glad for this time together. And
what if 100 rose-breasted grosbeaks flew in circles around your head? What if the mockingbird came into the house with you? What if the bees filled with honey and all you needed to do was ask them, and they would fill the bowl? What if the brook slid downhill just past your bedroom window so that you could listen to its slow prayers and fell asleep? What if the stars began to shout their names or to run this way and that above the clouds? What if you painted a picture of a tree and the leaves began to rustle and the bird cheerfully sang from its painted branch? What if you suddenly saw that the silver of water was brighter than the silver of money? What if you finally saw that the sun turning toward all day and day, who knows how, or more than gold?
Okay, I think I have put on all the correct headphones. Oh my goodness. So I might repeat the end of that poem, um, because I think, and Tim would agree. I mean, when we hear, now that Mary Oliver has spoken, we can all just go home. Um, but she asks all of these what if questions. Um, and there's an implication that the follow-up question is always, then how would you live then? So one of them was, And what if you painted a picture of a tree and the leaves began to rustle? How would you live then? In that case, perhaps with a bit more wonder. But at the same time, is that really any different than the reality we've already been granted? The act of it's seeing something itself. To see a painting in the mind via the eyes is nothing short of wondrous. And my guess is that many people here, through our forays into the mystical and the experiential, have already spent some time with that sense of direct experience. Or perhaps of removing the things we think are barriers to that fully sincere and direct relationship with reality, with God, at the present moment. So the end of the poem is, what if you finally saw that the sunflowers turning towards the sun all day were more precious than gold? To me, that makes me think, that's to say, what if we took the time to watch the sunflowers, we would notice that what seems to be still is always in motion. And we just don't often take the time. So I'm grateful, by the way, to have been asked to speak. I'm frankly not qualified. I'm mostly a practitioner of things, as Tim was talking about earlier. Certainly music, language, martial arts, woodworking. And I think all of these are really studies of practicing them with the mind. And so I also practice Japanese Zen. But I'm certainly not a cleric, and I'm not used to delivering talks. But I am a teacher of piano, so there I do a lot of talking with a little bit of bona fides. Piano lessons with me are something kind of between therapy and martial arts and church. It's to me, piano practice is chiefly a means to study my mind, to study how I relate to the world, which is how I put my sense of spirituality. You notice how you engage with the act of practicing itself, and you notice how you start noticing things. And you're trying to remove this barrier, in this case, to the direct experience of the music, which is really to say the direct experience of change, the direct experience of what the present feels like. So in some sense, it's easy to talk about change within the context of music, because this is great. This is good change. This is the kind of change we want more of, instead of the kind of change that we want to resist, or the kind of change that we are desperate to make happen. But change in music is related to basically the change of emotion, or the change in mental state as you're experiencing it. So I think I should be able to still play here. You don't need to see it. But if well, actually I can show it. There we go. That has both. If I play a major chord, that sounds a particular way. It sounds comforting and home. And if I change one note, it's quite different. All right, so when I play Twinkle Twinkle, that kind of veered off for a little bit, but then it came home. That feels settled. Nope, now we're back home. What happens next is inevitable. It resolves. So there is unsettled, settled. And most of music is basically built around this sense of leaving home and returning home. And so the change and how creatively a composer does that, accomplishes this manipulation of your experience here, that's what creates the sense of journey. But I think when we're thinking about change, there is the kind of change in music that's obvious. If I play this little section of a piece by McDowell, every single thing that happens changes constantly, so it's easy to see what I mean by change. It's of one type, but every single thing is different. And if I pause, then I start to notice how the feeling changes. And I see the route that the music is taking me through. But change can also feel very static. Change can be quite repetitive. If you do the same thing over and over and you're paying close enough attention, then change is really, really simple. There's this piece by one of the greatest composers that worked in this type of music is Arvo Pärt. And this is just the first like 8 measures of this piece called Spiegel im Spiegel. And it goes on like that for 10 minutes. So this is the same. And the way we experience it is new and new and new and new. There's an art professor that teaches. I think she teaches at Harvard. And I remember reading the story about what she did with her art students when she first worked with them. And she said, your assignment is to go out, go to a gallery, it doesn't matter which one, go find a painting, it doesn't matter which one, and your assignment is to spend at least 3 hours looking at it. And just the one painting. And come back and have a reflection about it. Of course, the first thing person does, I'm gonna sit down. Okay, interesting. Notice. Okay. And then it's like, okay, maybe now I'm noticing that light a little bit. You maybe notice a few things, but then you get desperately bored. And that's exactly the point. You get very, very bored. And then at some point, you get bored of being bored. So you get to figure out that magical thing that happens after boredom, which is, as described by some of these people, they finally started to see the painting. That to me is nothing short of amazing, that you can have this singular point of focus. Nothing is changing about it, except it's constantly changing. Your relationship with it is constantly changing. So this is building towards the point I'm making, and I'll shut up soon. So did you ever when you were a kid, you made funny face and your mom was like, don't make that face, it'll get stuck like that, right? And so you're like, okay. And you didn't really believe it, but you were kind of a little bit too worried to actually try. Like I wish that I had had the guts to go to the mirror and just do it anyway, because I think I would have learned an incredibly valuable lesson, and that is things change even if you desperately try for them not to. You know, take a deep breath and try and be static. The illusion of will not last long. We cannot escape from it. So it's not just that we don't need to have a fear that things won't change. It's not that we don't need to have a fear that things will change. It's just that such a fear is completely meaningless in the face of the fact that there is only change. Being is change. Not so much being involves change. Being is only being because of change. And change is only change because of being. you know, my this has a lot to do with the fact that we thingify the world when the world is nothing but an ever-changing event. My Zen teacher often gives this demonstration of like grabbing something, like here's a hymnal, and he would say, "What is this?" Okay, it's a book. Yes, but it's composite, of course. You can say it's made up of materials. It's fibers and ink and blah blah blah. But we call it a book because that's a function. And we actually specifically call this a hymnal. It's functioning as a specific type of book. And if I ripped it, then we would say the book is broken. But the only thing that is broken is our concept of book. And the materials have just changed. And they would have, whether we ripped it or not, they would continue to change. So, you know, I feel like the danger of the danger of missing this is that it isn't just philosophical, you know, like the sunflower from the poem or the artwork or the repeated patterns in the piano. If we miss what is actually new about things which seem to repeat, which we do a lot of repetition in our lives, if we're missing that newness, then we've replaced it with a thing we think we know. And when we aren't agile, how can we respond to the Spirit? How can we go about doing the good work of creating the kingdom of God on earth? How can we have compassion for the ways that change pushes and pulls even the best of us? So to me, if you think of the Gospel of John, when he says, "I am the vine, you are the branches," to me, to be connected to that vine and to bear fruit is to be with it, to be in communion. You know, where are you now? And another little tidbit from, I really enjoy the Gnostic texts. And in the Gospel of Thomas, which is just a collection of sayings of Jesus, number 13 says, Jesus said, "Become passersby." And that's the end of the whole segment. Become passersby. And then I went and I said, I wonder what people mean, what people think that means. And everyone's like, well, he said some crazy things. We don't know what any of that means. But it makes sense to me that to become a passerby, I don't know, we perhaps tacitly assume we're this thing, this static thing that experiences change, when really the reality that we have access to is just the experience of change. So I'll end with just this one last little piano thing because it's an interesting thing I do with my students. Let me just get it set up here. Go. And I'll put my handle away. So my students and I I use this demonstration to talk about what musicality is, because that's a question that comes up. It usually goes something like, I've learned all the right notes. I practiced a lot this week and I can do it, but now I don't know what to do with it. I'm playing everything correctly. How do I make it musical? What does that mean? So usually it starts with, well, how do you feel about it? Which is immediately a trap question, because as soon as they answer with a statement, they're wrong. Then they're talking about the music. And musicality is not about anything. It is the music itself. So what I say is, oh, you can't talk about the taste of honey. You can, but to someone who's never had it before, it won't ever replace just good, done. Immediately you have the taste of honey. You know it. You don't have to wonder about, oh, a balance of sweet and blah, blah, blah. So music does not work from abstractions. It is just generally to be experienced. So the answer of the question, how do I play musically, is with sincerity. And that's it. You don't need anything for that. I do all of these practices, the martial arts and everything that require the same thing over and over, scales and chords, the same 4 martial arts moves every single day. Woodworking, you're doing the same saw cutting over and over and over again. And my goodness, with Zen, just another period of meditation over and over. And my Zen teacher would say, not over and over, fresh and fresh. So I go over to the piano and I play C major. And I say, how's that sound? How's that feel to you? And usually after a few times, they just start listening a little differently. And we start to notice that it is different every time. And I don't go over into this secondary part here, but I will with you. How is this any different than your every moment? And then what is there that is to fear about change? Because that is all any of this is, including your fear. So why not be open to it? How can it be otherwise?
Alec, thank you for your thoughts on sincerity, musicality, change, being. Thank you very much. You said you're not a preacher or speaker or something like that. I would be glad to disagree with your statement there. Thank you for those very thoughtful words, and also for the rest of you. You should know that it's been a few years now, but Alec preached one of the bravest, most inspiring sermons I have ever heard. And maybe it's online if you dig through the Westmoreland UCC archives on YouTube. It may be there. That may have been before we were YouTube smart. But thank you for your words tonight, Alec. What we want to do is open the conversation to sort of a continuing experience here. Yeah, some of you may want to offer reflections about something Alex said. A few other questions popped in the chat in regard to change. Where are you feeling new revelations and new understandings during this season of Pentecost? Where is new art in your life? And I put that in quotes in reference to Alex's story about looking at the same piece of art until it becomes something new. What barriers need to be removed for you to see or hear the new? Who or what helps you and inspires you? I said that Alex's sermon from several years ago still continues to inspire me, but who or what inspires you as you leave home, to use the phrase he played for us, as you leave home and return home, or very practically thinking about this Ember Evening spring growth, what's growing in your garden? And that can be a real live garden, or that can be a metaphor for new places. Again, we want to be brief. We don't want to go on for paragraphs, but certainly want to offer time for anyone who has thoughts about change or being or growth or new life to speak those into our Zoom circle this evening. So if anyone wants to, you may want to raise your hand or unmute yourself.
This is Dave Birkland in Lincoln. We had one of those days today, one of those spring days that just leaves you breathless. If you stood in the shade, you felt the newness, you felt the refreshing breeze. If you stood in the sun, you felt the warmth of the sun. Spring always reminds me of rebirth, of renewal. So it was a really good day here in Lincoln. And I enjoyed it much.
Thanks, Dave.
This is Bonnie. Alex, thank you for that beautiful music. It just about brought tears to my eyes. But in listening to the tension of your chords, it reminded me of that liminal space between wanting things to be the same and the wonderment of change. And as those plates move, you're looking for what's special in that wonderment, and you're unaware that it has changed and that you have moved into a new now. So we love the comfort of what we know, and we love the wonderment what's new, as long as it's over there and I don't have to change in order to participate in it. But if we see that, those little tiny things, like the ants that toddlers fall in love with watching, or those flowers the first time you see a crocus coming up in the snow, or the little baby geese that run across my yard. But I just want to thank you. That is just a lot to hold. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. Comfort and wonderment, two good words there. Thank you. So Alec, thanks again. Thoughtful. Thank you. I'm going to invite you all. This will be on the Ligare YouTube page or site or whatever we call that. So you can go back and listen to the music and see your own pretty faces and listen to Alex's words again and share them with others. So thanks so much. And Alec, I think you have a piece of music, and then we'll have the closing words as well. Do you have another bit of music? We're making work really hard this evening, and we're grateful. Thank you all again. Closing words from Octavia Butler. The always brilliant writer, Octavia Butler, words that I first became aware of from Alec's colleague and my colleague, Reverend Kaylee McAvoy. So thanks to Kaylee for introducing me to these words from Octavia Butler. As Butler wrote, "Create no images of God, except the images that God has provided. They are everywhere in everything. God is change. Seed to tree, tree to forest, rain to river, river to sea, grubs to bees, bees to swarm. From one, many, from many, one. Forever uniting, growing, dissolving, forever changing. The universe is God's self-portrait."